Good morning, everybody. Well, I almost made it a full year here at St. Mary's without putting a hole in the ceiling, and then this week happened. I'm happy to say that the work of getting all the bats out of the attic has been going really well. We're trying to get all of the bats to become Methodists and move next door. But we did have a little bit of a mishap this week, and so we'll get that fixed just as soon as we can. I recently heard a story from a pastor who was on a trip to northern Uganda. And he took a trip there to learn more about the Christian community there. And the Christians in this part of Uganda, they'll send out missionaries from their communities 2 by 2 to the outer ring of small villages. And as they enter into these villages, they'll preach the gospel. And little by little, they'll start to have villagers come to the faith. And as more and more people are baptized and begin to learn about what it means to be Christian, and as they enter into the life of the Christian community, they come to the point where the missionaries ask them this question: what is something that you have that you can use to alleviate the suffering of those around you? What's a gift or a tool or a talent that you have that you can put to use that will alleviate the suffering of those other people in your village? They come to the realization that our Christian faith isn't meant just for ourselves alone, but is meant to be lived for those around us. And so at one of these meetings, a man who had recently come to the faith is pondering this question, and he says, well, I do have something I could give that might be able to help, but it's just a bit of land that I don't have. But there's a problem. And the problem is that that land is a swamp. And that swamp has become a breeding ground for mosquitoes. And those mosquitoes are carrying malaria. So the only thing I have that I could give you is literally causing human suffering. Well, the other people, a part of this Christian community, didn't want to let the offer of land just die off. And so they started to think together, well, what could we do? Like, does God have a vision for us using this land? So they committed to digging for an entire month, trying to see if they could reach water level, and if they did, they would establish a pond. And so for a whole month, they were digging, and week after week, they didn't hit water, but week 4, they struck water, and they were able to establish a pond. And in that pond, they started to breed fish. And with those fish, they began to be able to feed their community. But they had too many fish that they didn't know what to do with, so they started taking them to the market. And in the market, they would sell the fish, and they'd have a source of income. And with that income, they would start to fund the education of their young people. And then they started to dig up more ponds, to the point where this community had 4 ponds. And so now they had to hire some people to care for them. And from there, they had so much income, they were able to build houses for their community. This land that had literally been killing them became a great source of life. It was feeding them. It was educating them. It was housing them. It was employing them. And if the story stopped there, it would be a really great story. But the villagers noticed something. And that was that their fish were breeding at insanely high rates. And so they dug into why that was, and they came to find out that the fish were feeding on the mosquito larvae. That the very thing that had been killing them was completely transformed and had become a source of life for themselves and those around them. Now, how does this story begin? What's the first step in this story? One man, one person, coming to faith. And then asking that next question, now what? What am I supposed to do with this gift that I have been given? Little by little, that one person coming to faith and then taking the next step began to transform not only himself, but his entire community. Today we celebrate the feast day of Saints Peter and Paul. Really the two principal apostles, the two pillars of our faith. We call them the pillars and the apostles to Rome, because that's where they both went eventually. They took the gospel message to Rome, the center of the world at the time. And what was ancient Rome for Peter and Paul like? Well, it was a place that was literally killing people like them. We wear red today because both Peter and Paul shed their blood for their faith in the city of Rome. But little by little, this seed of faith that they brought and planted in Rome began to grow. And after a few years and then a few centuries, this seed of faith grew to the point where this Christian community, well, it started to educate one another and people. It started to build hospitals to care for the sick and the infirm. Little by little, this place that was literally killing them and was set against them was completely transformed. And how is that? What was the cause of that? One person came to faith, Peter. And then another person came to faith, Paul. And one by one, little by little, those seeds of faith completely changed this place. So much so that Rome is still where we look to have that visible unity of our Christian faith. In our gospel today, Jesus asks Peter the most consequential question of his entire life. Who do you say that I am, Peter? Am I just some good guy? Or am I the Lord? And in that moment of clarity for Peter, he responds with deep faith and conviction, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And in that moment, it is a time of deep transformation for Peter alone. But could he have imagined how that act of faith on his part was going to transform an entire culture? Friends, for each and every one of us, the example of Peter and Paul, their conviction, their choice for faith, and the far effects it had, should be a reminder for us of what it means when we say we believe. That this morning, the Lord is asking once again each and every one of us, who am I to you? Who do you say that I am? Am I the Lord? Am I the Christ? And if I am, that means I need to be the complete center of your life. That decision to make Christ the center of your life, the building block of everything that you do, will have far-reaching effects, not just for you, but for your family, for your community, for our parish, for the entire world. This is the way that seed of faith wants to be growing in you. And so today, as we remember the gift of faith really given to us through the example of Peter and Paul, let it be for us an opportunity to recommit ourselves in faith and then in the Lord, and then let Him take that and change us, change our families, and change our community.